This week on 52 Weeks of Why, I have the privilege of having a guest who's helped me in my personal development in ways beyond measure. And we'll talk a little bit about his book and how impactful that book was on me as we go through the interview today. These are challenging times that we find ourselves in. Most of us who are watching are in some form of stay-at-home order or another. And I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen and watch these podcasts as we produce them. I think now more than ever, the message of having a why is so important and so grounding to us as we go through these challenging times. As always, I have a very brief quote. This one is another Jim Rohn quote, lots of those as we go through the weeks here. Mr. Rohn says, "We will always suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline, which weighs ounces, or the pain of regret, which weighs tons." In this journey of 52 weeks of why, I think having that why and the discipline to use that why as your compass as you navigate decisions and life is so important, because in the absence of that, you go back and have regret, right? And that pain of regret is so much heavier and more intense than that pain of discipline. My guest today is Vince Poscente. Vince is an amazing author, is a father and a husband, and somebody that after I read his book, I just had to look him up and I had to find him and I had to engage in a conversation with him. I spent the last 3 or 4 years of my life diving into the subconscious mind and the power of the subconscious mind and training the subconscious mind. And Vince's book was instrumental in me figuring out how I could make use of my subconscious mind in a positive manner. And just as a quick example of that, we've all had these decisions that we've had to make where somebody wanted an answer from us. And we say, okay, just let me sleep on it. And somehow we wake up the next morning and have an answer. And it wasn't an answer that we had to think about. We didn't have to beat our head against it. We didn't have to sit down and write down 55 different things. Literally by planting that seed into our subconscious and sleeping on it, we could wake up the next day and have an answer. And that is an example of the power of the subconscious mind. And what I've learned through my reading and through Vince's book specifically is that example that I just gave can be something that you do on a daily basis. That's something that you can plant the seed at 9 a.m. in the morning, and then at 9:30 a.m. in the morning in moments of silence, you will get that answer from your subconscious mind. And his book, The Ant and the Elephant, is a guide in how to engage with your subconscious mind by means of a parable. First, Vince, thank you very much for being here and taking the time to be with me today.
You're welcome. I'm thrilled to spend time with you.
So before I get into your why, I want to ask just a very quick question about how The Ant and the Elephant came to be. What was the inspiration? What happened that you were inspired to have this book come into being?
Well, that's a two-part question, two-part answer. You know, I went from, as you know, recreational skier to the Olympic Games in 4 years. So 26 years old, never ski raced before, was in the Olympics at 30. And the way that all pulled together is I used a lot of mental training techniques. And the second part of the answer is I heard a speech by a guy named Dr. Lee Poulos about a year after the Olympics. And he said that in a second of time, your conscious mind uses 2,000 neurons, while in the same second, your subconscious mind is utilizing 4 billion neurons. So 2,000 neurons consciously are listening to what I have to say. You're internalizing this message. You might be thinking, I look like Anderson Cooper, a little chunkier. My wife said I look like the old man from Up. So whatever you're thinking consciously with 2,000 neurons, pretty profound awareness. But in the same second, your subconscious mind using 4 billion neurons means the subconscious mind is in control. So the ratio between the conscious and subconscious mind's activity is the exact same ratio between an ant and an elephant. The ant, the conscious mind, is on the back of the elephant. The ant is making decisions on direction. We're going in this direction. I'm making a decision. I have willpower. Here we go. But what if the elephant is headed east? You know, the ant says and walks west, says it wants to go west and walks west, but the elephant ends up putting us both east, meaning we end up in a different place altogether going, how did I end up here? So the essence of that concept is that the ant and the elephant are aligned and go in the same direction.
I think it's so interesting to hear you and other people who have had a major influence on me come out of or are still currently engaged in the sports world, and how the training, especially the mental training that goes into being an athlete, has impacted so many authors and so many leaders and so many coaches and so many motivational speakers coming out of or being actively engaged in the sports world is so instrumental to that. And I didn't want to abbreviate your story. I wanted you to tell it because I think it's so important for people to understand the analogies that go into play. I did not know that the ant and the elephant were directly proportionate to the conscious and subconscious mind. That's a pretty neat put together there. Now, we'll talk about the book that is forthcoming after we finish up. And I want to set you up properly as a father of 3 children who were previously in college as an empty nester.
Recently.
And now they're all back home again as a result of the shut-in order, and as a husband of 23 years. So it's amazing to me, again, how many of the people that I've interviewed have these long-standing relationships with their spouse. And I appreciate the time and effort that goes into maintaining that relationship while being an author and a speaker and a coach and having a normal day-to-day career. So I just want to set that up properly because I think the family portion of it is so important to me. Vince, again, thank you for being here. Will you share with us, please, your why?
Well, I feel that there's levels of why. And I personally believe we need to start from what gives you energy. Because if if you think about the conscious and subconscious mind, the subconscious mind is going to feed you your why, your elephant. And but it's subconscious, it's below consciousness. So the why can be such a mystery. It's like, well, what is that? I mean, what am I meant to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to follow? Follow the energy. I mean, that's something that I learned very early on. When I say early, no. It took me a while, man. I was about late 20s, and I was going through a very difficult marriage. And I was introduced to a course called The Pursuit of Excellence. And it's similar to, you might have heard of Landmark. They've got a great course going on as well. And so I dove into that. They said, well, what do you want to learn? Well, I'm having a horrible marriage at the time. And it really wasn't going well. And they said, what would you like to work on? I said, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'd like my business to grow. And they said, well, okay, come on in. And then I realized that the foundation of my why was kind of a mystery. And so first following what gives you energy and making a difference and serving others and making sure that I'm able to take my unique abilities, which is communication and maybe sense of humor and coupling those things together. And the second level of the why is what I call a question. They call the question as well. And the question is how to live in that question. And my question is, how will I serve with love? And so, all the deal stuff, all the entrepreneur stuff, all the driving stuff, all that is fine. But really at the very foundation, how can I live in that question? And it's funny, finding your why. Well, the why is a question as well. To really dissect the word why and say, stay in the question rather than stay in the place where you're having that answer to the question. Meaning, am I in this place? Am I in this place? Am I in my why? Am I in my why? And in this case, my why was serving not only others with love, but the self as well. In fact, we can learn from getting on that plane. You've heard it a million times. Put your oxygen mask on first, then help others. I mean, that's such a powerful way to serve with love and serve with love at the same time. Being able to serve with love, I ask myself that every question at the end of a day. Did I do this at the end of the day? Going down the list, and then that leads to things like gratitude and awareness that we're in integrity. I'll leave you with this. Well, not leave you, but this piece is there's a saying that I say often: winning is a journey of integrity. What is integrity? Well, that's living your why. Integrity is being in that place where you're on purpose rather than just doing and flailing. So I'm talking too much, maybe.
No, this is great, because I want to make sure I summarize what you said correctly and that I heard it correctly. So the summation of the why is serving others and yourself with love.
Yeah. How will I serve with love? It's a question. Right.
Correct. And so when you kind of touched on this a little bit. So coming into the discovery of your why, it's interesting to hear you say that the subconscious mind was probably aware that this was your why all along. Oh, yeah. And that this was something that energized you all along, but you didn't have the proper way to articulate it until that mid-20s age. Am I saying that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So if you look back into people who are discovering their why, whether they're teenagers or whether they're in their 20s, and they're on the journey of trying to discover it, you're the first person that's brought up this concept of energizing and what energizes you. Can you expand on that a little bit, just to help other people?
That's a great place to start. And it's a very simple litmus test. You remember in high school when we learned about litmus tests, you put the litmus strip in and it has a reaction. Well, what is causing a reaction in your body when you do something? Let's say, for example, if I'm doing taxes, does that give me energy? Does going through numbers give me energy? No, when I really think about it, I think my eyes roll in the back of my head and I just want to lay down and have Haagen-Dazs ice cream. That's all I want to do. But, so maybe that's not it. That's not giving me energy. But this call, for example, I mean, being able to contribute and serve with love, and to take a book that there was 14 versions of that book before it became a real thing. It was such an agonizing process to make it a simple tome, but to be able to take that and leverage that and put that out in the world, man, that gives me energy. So there's no question that if you can pay attention to that energy, the thing that you go, wait, I feel better. An example might be of that feeling is, when you fell in love for the first time and you stayed up till 4 a.m. talking, and you just had unlimited energy. I mean, when there's something where we don't have energy, then we just kind of, I'm so tired, I got to go to bed. Well, there's a clue that's not giving you energy. So paying attention to that physical litmus test of yours is a critical first step to be able to say, okay, what is it about that? And then you've heard of peeling the onion. I think this more like a coconut, right? If you've ever seen a real coconut off a tree, the exterior is all this fiber that's near impossible to get through. Then you've got this hard surface, then you get the softer stuff, and then you get the milk in the middle. That kind of metaphor is much more apropos for the human condition. We can have such a fibrous exterior, and it's tough to get through. So there's no magic bullet. There's no, flip a switch and go, oh, that's my why. This is something we have to work at and pay attention to. And once you get into the middle of that, the milk of it, man, things get easier. Life gets easier.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you can probably relate to this. We are forced in life, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you're forced to deal with things that are energy drains, things that after you've completed the task or the phone call or the meeting, that you just feel like you're down to a quarter tank, or even the gas light is on, right? And for me, understanding what my energy refill was a critical component to getting myself back to a full tank, because it's entirely possible you come into work that day and at 9 a.m. you have a phone call or an interaction that drains your tank completely, and you still have 7.5 hours left of the workday, that you have to complete. You can't operate with the gas light on forever. And if you can find that thing that is your energy refill, that just literally plug it in, it's like that meter on Monsters Inc. when the baby starts laughing and just shoots to the top and explodes. That analogy is perfect. It never would have occurred to me that the way I use that energy refill in business would also apply to the discovery of your why. The why is very closely related to what fills you up. So question for you then, has this been your why since you discovered it at age 26? Or I think you hit on this, that there's multiple levels, or there's deviations, or this is the why and that's it, and it has not changed.
Yeah. It was about 28, 29 years old where I started to figure out how will I serve with love? And then it's been, you can call it a mantra, or you can call it the lighthouse, the beacon. It really is on the compass. It would be north. And so always knowing that that's north, that's the direction. And, you like you said, you get taken off course, but that's okay. I mean, that's life. We're taken off course right now, for crying out loud. But how can I serve with love? Gives you energy, pops you back into that place. And so it really is a question of just staying in that place and constantly seeking out the experiences that give you energy, which puts you on purpose, which puts you in the alignment, which is for you, your own true north.
So in your mornings, when you're up and getting your day started, how or does this why impact that morning mindset, or is it a part of your morning routine? How does that why impact your morning?
I just have two terms: activate and meditate. If the activate, I'm built like a fire hydrant, man. I ran one marathon. I went, never again. I am never doing that again. Because I was just like, dun, 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 but I got through it. And to be able to activate, I find doing a little yoga video. I put this DVD on and just activate the body, and then I meditate. I've meditated since the age of 14 years old. It's something called transcendental meditation. Back when my mom took our entire family and learned how to meditate. Ever since then, I can always correlate peaks in my life to when I was meditating, had that meditation discipline, and I can look at places that are valleys and I went, wait a minute, what turned things around is to be able to meditate. So meditation, let me briefly say what that is. It's so the activate is the yoga piece, which is whatever you do. It could be a walk or whatever, but then the meditation piece is like kind of like a snow globe full of smart flakes. And your brain is such that when you give your chance to self to step back, the flakes fall in the places they're supposed to be. And this is correlated to staying in that place of setting up your day, making sure you're going to have peak performance, making sure that you're going to be on purpose. Over time, I'm 58 now, and I've evolved, whether that's in a good way or just my own journey, is from a very driven, goal-oriented person to being in the state of, meaning the state of serving with love. And it's kind of like that symbol of yin and yang, really, in many ways. The yin is the ability to let go, and the yang is the ability to drive towards something. And creating that balance all day long is really a critical piece to staying in that zone. So in answer to your question, start the day, activate and meditate.
You're one of many who has had this meditation practice as a part of their morning routine. I've only recently gotten into this practice of silence, and I'm only getting into it as a breathing exercise right now. I'm using Wim Hof as a guide for me at this point in time.
Right.
And so, for just to deviate just a little bit from the why and talk just briefly about that practice on your end, the meditation. So a couple of people I've talked to, it's ranged from when they first started meditating as a 15 to 20 minute or 5 to 10 minute practice to
I do 20.
Now yeah, now years later, some of them are going an hour and change.
Yeah.
In your mind, since I value your judgment on something like this, does the duration of time matter as long as you're letting your individual dust snowflakes settle into place appropriately? Does it matter if it's 20 minutes or an hour or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or is it specific to the individual?
What matters is the frequency. And it's not just once a day. It's not just at the beginning of the day. At about 3:34 in the afternoon, when you start to hit that kind of doldrums of a kind of, I need a coffee. I need to shake it up. I need to go for a walk or something. What I do is meditate in the afternoon as well. And it's 20 minutes in the afternoon, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. You can knock it out. I've done the advanced meditation. It's the TM Siddhi program. And was meditating over an hour in the morning and over an hour in the afternoon. I did not have time for that. I mean, I had 3 kids running around. Running a business. I got to keep paid bills. I mean, it was, and the meditation, the TM people say, well, you find the time, Mahesh Yogi was saying, well, you find the time, it was like, I can't have the time. So I don't know.
Well, that's why I asked that question. It's almost a selfish reason that I ask, right? Because I'm in the same boat where with an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, I can wake up early enough to accomplish that. But having an hour just to set aside away from them is almost out of the question in my world.
Quite the luxury.
That morning routine is so important. Everybody that I've talked to about their why.
And afternoon. I mean, it really is important to understand that if you just did morning meditation, let's say that has on the scale of 1 to 100, the value of 30 units of value. If you meditated twice a day, you would have 100 units of value. So or if you just did it in the afternoon, you would have 30 units of value. If you did it twice a day, you would have 100 units. The point behind this is the brain needs to have those smart snowflakes settle into place on a pretty disciplined basis, on a frequent basis. And that's why morning and afternoon are a very, very important part of my day.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm still trying to find the balance of allowing the snowflakes to settle in my life. And to your point, I think I suffer from the afternoon doldrums, as I think everybody does, and we all just tend to run for the cup of coffee. And having this as an alternative to that is pretty important. So how do you know either on an individual basis or on a daily basis when you rest your head on the pillow that your why has been fulfilled?
I can never answer that, actually, but I can answer, did I serve with love today? Which is back in the question, right? Did I serve with love today? Yeah, okay. And then I couple that with gratitude. I mean, there's a lot of this advice is about letting go. And let's talk about letting go for just a second. When I was in college, very frustrated because I was procrastinating all the time. Like I was like, why am I doing this? What is going on up here that has me procrastinating all the time? And I went to a professor who I thought, you've seen thousands of students. How do they get past the procrastination? Because I'm not the only one. And the professor looked at me and said, well, you just do it. I said, well, I know that. I know that you just do it. But how can I short circuit this procrastination? How can I get in front of it? And he just looked at me again and said, well, you just do it. And I walked away going, what? I had no answer. And it's the same with letting go. It's the advice is, well, just let go. Just let go. I get that you just let go, but how? And so
I don't even know what I'm holding on to, right? How am I supposed to let it go? I don't even know what I'm holding on to.
Well, sometimes you have those sleepless nights where you just can't, tossing and turning or whatever, and the advice is just let go. Well, no, the hacks to be able to do that is, one is to break the pattern. There's a pattern that the brain's going through and whatever. So break that pattern. So for example, let's use not being able to sleep at night. So get out of bed, break the pattern, have it just a sip of water or a glass of water. I did this last night. I couldn't sleep. And I got out of bed, sipped some water. Second is I went to the gratitude and just started to list things that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for this, which all ties into your why, right? Because if you're living in your why, then the things you're grateful for connect directly. And then the third piece, that's when you let go and say, you know what, could you just handle this? I'm going to go to sleep right now. And when I wake up in the morning, that'd be great. So I would say those three things can really get us to that place of letting go, getting us to that place of living in your why.
I love that you take all of these questions that should have an answer and allow the answer to be another question because truthfully, a lot of these questions, it's such an individualized thing. It's so subjective. It's so specific that sometimes having this concrete answer is a wall to somebody else, is a barrier to somebody else. And going back to the question, living in the question, as you said so greatly, living in the question is so easy to do because then you're not living for the answer. You're not waiting for the magical moment when, I finally have the answer. And actually I had Ryan Leak on the podcast last week, and Ryan just said, you know, some of these guys that have realized the pinnacle of success in their goals, they still don't have the answer. They still are struggling with their why because they attributed their why to material things, to tangible things, to goals being accomplished. And when they got those material things and those tangible things and their goal accomplished, they were still left with this emptiness inside. And another thing that you hit on that I just want to emphasize again is that you're living for the process, not necessarily the result, right? The process is life. The process is every single day living for that question. On that note, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, the book, I've written a sequel to The Ant and the Elephant called The Ant, Elephant, and Earthquake. And that steps on the shoulders of your comment just now, is being able to look out to The Ant and the Elephant is a very linear book. How to set a worthy goal and the 5 steps to get there. I mean, to align your conscious and subconscious mind. And yes, there'll be obstacles along the way, but it's still very linear. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you will get to your oasis. The Ant and the Elephant and the Earthquake is a book about this. It's a sequel. And the ant and the elephant go through an earthquake. Everything they know is destroyed and decimated. Everything, they had a massive setback. People can relate if they've had cancer, divorce, bankruptcy, let's say the coronavirus, or the effects of the coronavirus on the rest of society. I mean, all of us have our own personal earthquakes. And ultimately, I won't go through the tools within it, but I will say that it has everything to do with the process. It has everything to do with the process of getting through this rather than a silver bullet to get out of that being stuck, out of that chaos. Because when we are in chaos, there's no linear way out of chaos. We have to say, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? And if something catches, then we can actually pop through and get out. Or we stay stuck in the chaos, and that's not a very healthy place to be.
I can't wait for this to come out. I think it's such a timely thing. I wish it were here now, because we're living in the earthquake, right? We're here in the moment, struggling with the new normal, and trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together. And I love, once again, you come back to the earthquake asking a whole series of questions. Will this work? Will this work? Will this work? Right? Rather than arriving at a conclusion that this is it, this is just it. It's more about proactive moving forward, asking more questions. And again, I'm sure that you would agree that having a why, having that thing that energizes you is one instrumental thing that helps you get out of that zone.
Right. Your why will be tested in this chaos. And this test, how you respond, is more about embracing embracing the growth rather than thinking that you'll have arrived at any point in particular. It's very much, I mean, just I saw a little goofy video on Facebook just recently, and it was a dog in a plastic tub just doing that with water, right? I don't know if dogs smile, but that dog was smiling. And what's the dog doing? Nothing. I mean, it was just like blah, 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 with the water. But the fact was, it was having joy in that moment. Nothing to do with the past, nothing to do with the future, being in that moment. Am I serving with love? Blah, 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 blah. Of course. Okay, there you go. Anyways, great spending time with you.
Thanks so much for your time, Vince. I appreciate it. And I can't wait for the new book. And thank you again.
You're welcome. Take care.